boomers who were like, I was on 4chan. Pastor will not apologize for lying about Trump winning.
Full-grown pastors. Okay?
Oh.
Full-grown adult men sending me text messages, sending me inbox messages, asking me when I'm going to repent and resign my church because I said Trump was going to win the election and Trump didn't win. Let me tell you something. Trump won by landslide, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, I'm almost ashamed of these pastors and preachers and prophets that say, well, I'm going to have to apologize. No, you ain't got to apologize for nothing. He won single-handedly, hands down, biggest historical landslide. That's a factual deal, ladies and gentlemen. The man won. I ain't apologizing.
He won. He won. I promise he won. I promise. He won. If I keep saying it, maybe people will start believing it, and then we can storm the Capitol again, and then he could be the president, and we can all just live together happily ever after. He won by a lot, and if I just keep saying it, it's gonna be real. That's what you sound like, you dumb bitch.
To nobody for what I know in my spirit to be true.
Oh, I'm just manifesting right now. Can you please give me some time as I process my grief? I'm manifesting.
I am not required by God to accept something and submit to something that I know is demonic and fraudulent. You hear that? You heard that from your pastor. He is not my president and never will be until he...
Oh my God, just put on the pussy hat, dude. Just put on the pussy hat, you fucking bitch. He is not my president. Like, this is literally what they made fun of liberals for, dude. This is what they made fun of liberals for, dude. He's not my president. Meh. Meh. Ooh, it's so good. It's so good. Hogwatch, baby.
He wins an election the way the American election process is supposed to go. Somebody say amen up in this house.
But of course, because they are
here with us
here's the White House press briefing.
The president's commitment to have public health experts lead our communication with the American people about the pandemic.
Yo, this shit's gonna be so boring.
Just to give you a bit of a run of show here.
For the record, I think like once this first week is out of the way, we will never fucking hear about the press briefings ever again. Like, it's gonna go back to normal. People are not gonna watch this shit. Oh my God, Boebert went on Fox.
Cohen actually suggested that his Republican colleague, Congresswoman
Yeah,
Lauren
fuck the White House press
Boebert,
conference.
aided with the Capitol riot by conducting a large tour of the Capitol before the breach. In a statement provided to Fox News, Congresswoman Boebert called the claim baseless, disgusting. Congresswoman Boebert joins us now, the author of the brand new book, by the way, bestseller Firebrand, Matt Gaetz. Congresswoman.
Ugh. Dude, they're so... Ugh. They're just so gnarly and gross, dude. They're so gnarly and fucking gross. Matt Gaetz literally looks like the devil. Like, he looks like a cartoonish depiction of a bad person.
My understanding is this was not reconnaissance. This was a tour for your family.
This was my family, Sean, coming to celebrate this moment where I was being sworn in as a newly elected member of
Yeah, your family was celebrating the 1776 baby.
Congress. This is absolutely disgusting. There has been more than 30, there's been about 30 members of the Democratic Party who signed on to a letter asking for an investigation of the so-called reconnaissance tour. And there's not a shred of evidence. You have Representative Steve Cohen, who went on television saying that I was definitely a part of this, bringing my family to our nation's capital to celebrate this moment with me. And it's just absolutely disgusting and baseless. It just shows their hypocrisy on full display.
All right. Matt Gaetz, it doesn't get any worse than that. I mean, but this has been the broad sweeping generalization that conservatives, Republicans support insurrection. when everybody condemned it immediately, like we condemned the riots and those that weren't peaceful over the summer, something Democrats didn't do.
You're absolutely right, Sean. I guess they've caught us. Lauren Boebert's giving recon tours for insurrectionists. I abducted the Lindbergh baby. Jim Jordan knows what happened to Jimmy Hoffa, and Devin Nunes was on the grassy knoll. I guess to go along with these very fake...
Dude, please. Okay. It honestly, you have to make it illegal for conservative representatives to try to make jokes. It's illegal going forward. Okay? Like, that's just so bad, dude. Just don't do that. Like, it should literally be illegal. You are making everyone's lives worse by saying this shit. Okay? It's just so bad that you can't even fucking laugh at how bad it is. He's mathematically made it so that it's impossible to laugh at it. You can't laugh with it. You can't laugh at it. That's how bad it is, dude. At least sometimes you can laugh at how fucking stupid the jokes are.
Allegations against Republicans that we see, there are real consequences for our fellow Americans who are being erased in the digital space, who are being targeted in real life and in the flesh. We're entering a period of time where Joe Biden tells us to accept unity, but that unity appears to be at the expense of anyone who offers
of white supremacists, and that's terrifying for someone like myself, a white supremacist. That's so funny. Like, just say, yeah, fuck white supremacists. We're united on that. But no, you can't say that. You gotta be like, well, he mentioned white supremacists, and that means conservative, and we're conservatives, and he's just saying, like, white supremacists are conservative, and that's why I'm upset for no reason about him just saying white supremacists. He's not saying fuck conservatives, which he should. If you ask me, fuck conservatives all day. But, like, these motherfuckers went straight into taking ownership of white supremacists. Like, the moment Donald Trump was out of office, they took ownership of white supremacists and are now being like, every time you talk about white supremacists, you're talking about a conservative. No one asked you to take ownership of white supremacists, jackass. The expectation by Democrats is literally for you to say the bare minimum, which is, yes, white supremacists are bad. Of course.
dissent or disagreement. They don't want to just have a debate or a discussion. It appears they want to cancel us from the public square altogether. I'm glad we got folks like Lauren Boebert fighting for America. She can count on our support.
Now, Congresswoman Boebert, I can see you going for the firebrand title and taking it away from Matt Gaetz. That seems to be an emerging theme. Matt, you got some competition, just saying.
Hey, I'm so happy to serve alongside of Matt. This is truly an honor, and I wish there were more people in Congress just like us who are here for the right reasons, serving the American people.
All right. Thank you.
That's awesome. They didn't even have her on at all. Like, it was just Matt talking for the most part. Karl Rove being Karl Rove. Yeah, Joe Biden, racism is bad. Karl Rove, and I took that personally. Yeah, of course he took that personally. He's a racist.
Whether it's COVID or the economy or racism, why are they talking everything down, do you think?
Well, part of it is to lower expectations. The economy is really bad. COVID's all screwed up. It's all bungled. You know, it's going to be really hard to get these things fixed. And then as people get their vaccinations and the economy begins to rebound as a result of it being opened up, they can say, look at us, didn't we do a great job? The racism thing to me is, I was offended in the speech. I mean, I thought it was a good speech. It wasn't a great speech, but it was a good speech, and it was the right speech for the moment. But there was a point in there where he said we're divided as a country between the people who believe in the American ideal and racism, nativism, and fear. No. We're divided as a country politically over questions of policy and direction and respect, but we're as united as a country against racism and nativism. There are people in this country who are racist. There are people who are nativists, but the vast majority of Americans stand together on those issues. And that was an attempt to basically say, if you're not for me, you're part of the group that's, racist and native.
Wait, what? Is the entire conservative shtick literally just to look at what people who are liberal or left adjacent saying and then repeat exactly what they're saying, but in a tone that implies that they're disagreeing with them? Because that's precisely what Joe Biden is saying. We must unite against racists. So unless you're literally a fucking racist and a white nationalist, you should be saying, yes, of course, that's a normal, understandable position to hold. We all, as like reasonable conservatives, which by the way, Karl Rove is not, and no conservative is reasonable. But instead of saying that, he's like, wow, I can't believe he's excluding me, a white nativist and a racist. And then turning around and be like, of course we're all united against white nativists and racists. Well, that's what he was saying. Why you got to take on that fucking mantle? Nobody was asking you. No conservative is reasonable, lol W. Conservatism is inherently reactionary and goes against everything that is good. Okay? I'm sorry. It does. Yes, reactionary politics are bad. All right? Your worldview is bad. If your worldview is to go back to return the monkey or whatever, or however way you can chip away at progress and inherently stand in opposition to progress, then yes, there are no fucking good Republican politicians. There are very little good Democratic politicians to begin with. And yes, conservatism as an ideology is inherently damaging, and I think it's bad. Karl Rove's bag of dirty tricks in 2012. The Young Purse Post claims the Karl Rove strategy document tactics for effective conservative blogging. It's a playbook for engaging and largely wasting time of reactionaries' opponents. It's a subversion of several institutions of politics, of course, but also the media of public discourse and information and truth itself. Curiously, the document doesn't seem to have been previously discussed on Reddit. I've since submitted it to several subreddits. While I haven't established the authenticity of the document, it appears plausible. Oh, tactics. Engage. Demand an elaborate, time-consuming comparison analysis between your position and theirs. Entangle. Insist that the liberal put their position in their own words. That will consume the most time and effort for the liberal poster. They will be unable to spread numerous points on numerous blogs if you have them occupied. Allowing a liberal to post a web link is too quick and efficient for them. Tie them up. Demoralize. Dismiss their narrative as rubbish. Do not even read it. Once liberal goes through the trouble to research, gather, collate, compose, and write their narrative, your job is to discredit it. Make it obvious you toss their labor. What are you guys doing? Please stop. You're literally conservative compared to me, the woke anarchist. Stay mad, chud. Yeah, I don't care. Like, I dismiss dipshits to my left all the time for being little babies, and I don't care. Mods, can you both ban KEKW and LOLW right now? Attack the source. Any liberal website or information source must be marginalized, trivialized, confused, challenge a liberal position with questions, always questions. The questions need not be relevant. The goal is to knock the liberal poster off their game and seize control of the narrative. Contain. Your job is to prevent the presentation and spread of liberal viewpoints. Prevent the presentation and spread. Do anything you must to prevent a liberal poster from preserving a well-reasoned argument. Intimidate, taunt the liberals you find yourself in a debate. Insult their movement. Deceive, patriotism, demean, opportunity. What? Okay, this is too boring. But yeah, it's just basically conservative debate tactics.
He said, we're divided as a country between the people who believe in the American ideal and racism, nativism, and fear. No. We're divided as a country politically over questions of policy and direction and respect, but we're as united as a country against racism and nativism. There are people in this country who are racist. There are people who are nativists, but the vast majority of Americans stand together on those issues. And that.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally just repeating what Joe Biden said, but after acting like he's in disagreement with what Joe Biden said. It's just dumb as fuck. Like, there's no reason to do that. Here's how a normal human being would react to that. Yes, of course we're united against racism. What a silly thing to say. Move on. But instead, he's like, well, you know, there's a lot of racists and white nativists in this country. And also at the same time, Joe Biden is saying everyone who doesn't agree with me is a racist and a white nativist. Well, I don't agree with you. And that's actually a simple policy decision, a disagreement. He restates it in a way that doesn't frame him as a racist while putting himself in the racist camp. Yes. Isn't he saying there's no reason to call for unity because we're already there? Racism is dead already is the implied next sentence. Yes, that's what he's saying. He is, as a conservative, would, of course, say that implying that racism does not exist and is no longer a problem in this country. That's what he's saying. Of course he's saying that. He's a conservative.
The goal of getting vaccinations into farmers,
which is at the heart of the fucking problem. That's literally Joe Biden's point. People don't believe, or not Joe Biden's point, but like the broader left point is, yes, there is a problem with racism, and that problem is being caused by those who would act like racism does not exist.
What she may be saying is that for many people in this country who don't have access to a pharmacy, they may not be able to utilize getting things in the pharmacy. I'm not sure. I want to be careful because I'm not sure that's what she said. We just had a conversation about how we're going to get vaccines to people who are in pharmacy desert areas where they don't have easy access to a pharmacy. And that's something we're working on and taking very seriously.
But just to be clear, if you are in an area where you do have access to a CVS or a Walgreens, right, when will you be able to get access to this vaccine like you would a flu vaccine?
You know, in the spirit of not guessing, I'm not quite sure when that will be, but we can get back to you on that.
And just on the broader timeline, you mentioned the fall. We just heard the president say, you know, the brutal truth is that it is going to be several more months. Just to be clear, you're saying by the fall, the majority of Americans you think will be vaccinated?
No, I didn't say that. I said if we get the majority of Americans, 70 to 85% vaccinated by then, we could have a degree of herd immunity that would get us back to normal. The concern I have, and something we're working on, is getting people who have vaccine hesitancy who don't want to get vaccinated, because many people are skeptical about that. So we really need to do...
Bitch, I'm not skeptical. Give it to me right now. Give me the juice.
I don't know what the best case scenario for me is that we'd get 85% of the people vaccinated by the end of the summer. If we do, then by the time we
I'm over here waiting outside the fucking Supreme store for the latest vaccine drop to happen. And there's motherfuckers out here that are not trying to take it. Just give it to me, baby, please. Give it to me and give it to my family. I want it. I want it so I can fucking travel again.
What it is that you can do in vitro in a test tube setting, binding an affinity to the receptors, which you have in your nose, in your lung, and your GI tract. The receptor for the virus is called an ACE2 receptor, and the facility or affinity with which a virus binds to that means that it very likely will have a better efficiency of infection and replicate more in the nasopharynx. So that's how you make that determination.
I would unironically, if there was an RFID chip, like a tracker chip in that vaccine, I would unironically take it. Yeah. Who gives a fuck? My phone is literally on me at all times. I'm a push rimmer. Every part of my life is literally broadcasted. I would literally let the government track me right now. If it meant getting the vaccine and being able to like reach herd immunity, that's where I'm at currently. I'm just being totally honest with you guys.
That you would have a higher viral load.
I would let the government track me. Additionally, on top of the fucking iPhone and every other thing that I do that already has numerous open doors to the government to track me.
Then you'll be okay.
And on the UK strain, do you have any data on how widespread that strain is in the United States?
Well, I think it's in at least 20 states that people have mentioned. Exactly. The real question that's going to be asked, is it going to become the dominant strain, or will the strains we already have prevent it from flourishing and being the more dominant strain? But it is here for sure. Yeah.
Just a follow-up on vaccines. Some state and local authorities are saying that they would be able to distribute more vaccines if they had more. is the Biden administration now trying to increase production by Moderna and Pfizer in the next 6 weeks?
Yeah, as well as to utilize what we hope will be another player in the field, the J&J, Janssen, as well as other of the companies. But also, as the president has said in his plan, to do whatever he can to expand the availability of vaccines, whatever that is. I mean, he said that he's going to just use every possibility, including the Defense Production Act.
Can you explain the discrepancy between what some states are saying about needing more vaccines and the CDC saying that a lot of vaccine is still remaining on people's or on their shelves?
Yeah, you know, I think that is something that we need to really take a close look at, because that is sort of an inconsistent discrepancy. And then one of the things we want to do is to find out why that's the case. And if it is the case, particularly the thing that would be most disturbing, if there's vaccine laying around and people are not using it when others would need it. But I don't know the answer to that question, but we need to look into it.
Dr. Fauci, you've joked a couple times today already about the difference that you feel in being kind of the spokesperson for this issue in this administration versus the previous one. Can you talk a little bit about how much different do you feel, less constrained? What is the, I mean, you for so many times you stood up behind the podium with Donald Trump standing behind you. That was a different feeling, I'm sure, than it is today. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel kind of released from what you had been doing for the last year?
Yeah, but you said I was joking about it. I was very serious about it. I wasn't joking. No, actually, I mean, obviously, I don't want to be going back, over history, but it was very clear that there were things that were said, be it regarding things like hydroxychloroquine and other things like that, that really was uncomfortable because they were not based on scientific fact. I can tell you, I take no pleasure at all in being in a situation of contradicting the president. So it was really something that you didn't feel that you could actually say something and there wouldn't be any repercussions about it. The idea that you can get up here and talk about what you know, what the evidence, what the science is, and no, that's it. Let the science speak. It is somewhat of a liberating feeling.
Basically banished for a few months there for a while. You feel like you're back now?
I think so.
Well,
okay.
that's Mike Scheer. You don't want to take questions from him in the future. Thank you, Dr. Fauci, so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we'll have him back again. So
thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. As I promised, we'll have a full briefing from here. So, as you know, just a few moments ago, the president also released a national COVID-19 strategy and signed 10 executive orders and other directives to move quickly to contain the crisis. Underpinning everything the president signed today and everything we do every day will be equity. Some highlights of those actions include an executive order to fill supply shortfalls for vaccinations, testing, and PPE. The president directed agencies to exercise all appropriate authorities, including the Defense Production Act, to accelerate manufacturing and delivering of supplies such as N95, masks, gowns, gloves, PCR swabs, test reagents, and necessary equipment and material for the vaccine. The president also signed a presidential memorandum to increase federal reimbursement to states and tribes for the cost of National Guard personnel, emergency supplies, and the personnel and equipment needed to create vaccination centers. An executive order that established a COVID-19 pandemic testing board to bring the full force of the federal government's expertise to expanding testing supply and increasing access to testing. An executive order to bolster access to COVID-19 treatments and clinical care, establishing a comprehensive and coordinated preclinical drug discovery and development program to allow therapeutics to be evaluated and developed in response to pandemic threats. Sorry, I had to clear my throat. There's a lot here. He also issued an executive order directing the Departments of Education and Health and Human Services to provide guidance on safe reopening and operating for schools, childcare providers, and institutions of higher education. An executive order on the Occupational Safety and Health Administration to immediately release clear guidance for employers to help keep workers safe from COVID-19 exposure. An executive order to require mask wearing in airports or certain modes of public transportation, including many trains, airplanes, maritime vessels, and intercity buses. And an executive order establishing a COVID-19 health equity task force, something we had previously announced, but making it official today, to provide specific recommendations to the president for allocating resources and funding in communities with inequities in COVID-19 outcomes by race, ethnicity, geography, disability, and other considerations. These steps, of course, build on the actions we announced yesterday. I had an additional update. Some of you may have seen this come out through late last night, but I wanted to share with you that as a result of one of the executive orders President Biden signed yesterday, the acting Homeland Security Secretary issued a memorandum to review and reset immigration enforcement priorities. For 100 days, beginning tomorrow, the Department of Homeland Security will pause removals for certain individuals. This pause will allow the administration to review and reset enforcement policies and ensure that resources are dedicated to the most pressing challenges and that we have a fair and effective enforcement system rooted in responsibly managing the border and protecting our national security and public safety. I had one other item I just wanted to flag for you about something the First Lady is up to. Let me see if I can find that, or I will circle back to it a little bit later. With that, I'm happy to take your questions. Zeke, why don't you kick us off?
Thanks, Jen. There was some reporting earlier today about the president's commitment to extending New START. Can you talk about what the president's directive on that front has been? Additionally, can you confirm that the president requested reports from the new DNI for an assessment on potential foreign interference in the 2020 election, and then also the Solar Winds Act?
I can confirm that the United States intends to seek a 5-year extension of New START as the treaty permits. The president has long been clear that the New START treaty is in the national security interests of the United States. And this extension makes even more sense when the relationship with Russia is adversarial, as it is at this time. New START is the only remaining treaty constraining Russian nuclear forces and is an anchor of strategic stability between our two countries. And to the other part of your question, even as we work with Russia to advance U.S. interests, so too we work to hold Russia to account for its reckless and adversarial actions. And to this end, the president is also issuing a tasking to the intelligence community for its full assessment of the SolarWinds cyber breach, Russian interference in the 2020 election, its use of chemical weapons against opposition leader Alexei Navalny, and the alleged bounties on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan. So that's hopefully answered all of it. That was a mouthful.
And just changing gears for a quick second to COVID and the negotiations with Capitol Hill, how long is the president willing to pursue bipartisanship? Democrats are already talking about a reconciliation process. Is there given the critical need for some sort of aid here that the president's talking about, is there a deadline at which he's giving Republicans, is it February 1st? Is it President's weekend by which he'll say, no, we're going to do this by reconciliation instead?
Well, I'm not going to set any deadlines on our first full day in office, but I will say, and hopefully I'll have more for all of you on this tomorrow, we are going to be increasing our engagement. It's already been ongoing even before the president was inaugurated yesterday, but hopefully we'll have more to share with you tomorrow on meetings, engagements, discussions that will be going on with leaders on Capitol Hill and many members over the course of the next several days. As I conveyed to all of you yesterday, his preference and priority is a bipartisan package and working with members of both parties to come to agreement on that, because he believes that the crises facing the American people, as we saw the jobs numbers this morning, the unemployment insurance claims, I should say. We put out a statement by our NEC director, in case you didn't see that. As we've seen, and the reports from Dr. Fauci just a few minutes ago, this crisis is dire, and it requires immediate action. And we hope and expect members of both parties to work together to do that. We're also not going to take options off the table, so we'll proceed with those discussions over the next couple of days. Go ahead, Kristen.
Hi, Jen. If I could just follow up on that. There was some reporting that there was going to be a meeting this weekend with a bipartisan group of lawmakers. Can you give us any indication? Is that going to happen with President Biden or with his economic team? Is that your expectation?
Well, I think the reporting was around a meeting with NEC Director Brian Deese. I spoke with him earlier today. He is definitely going to be engaging with a range of members and a range of different groups of members from Capitol Hill in the coming days. I think we were still working to confirm specific meetings before I came out here, and I hope to have more for all of you on that by tomorrow.
Okay, and more broadly speaking, Jen, President Biden has proposed this $1.9 trillion package. You already have some Republicans who say, we just passed a stimulus plan. They're not going to get on board with this. Mitt Romney among them, who says we just passed a program with over $900 billion. And some people say the price tag is just way too big. So how does President Biden expect to get this passed with bipartisan support? And how does that fit into his broader message of bipartisanship, proposing something like this that's that big?
Well, I think it fits perfectly into his message of bipartisanship. He wants to work with Democrats and Republicans to address the crises that the American people are facing, whether they live in red states or blue states or Democrats or Republicans. The package was designed based on recommendations from health experts, from economists. It's been applauded by everyone from Senator Bernie Sanders to the Chamber of Commerce. And there are specific pieces in there that are meant to serve as a bridge for the American people, including a large percentage of it that's for unemployment insurance, funding for vaccine distribution, something that is pivotal, as we've already been discussing here today, for reopening of schools. So part of the discussion we'll be having with members is what do you want to cut? And this is a plan that he feels addresses the crisis at the moment.
Fuck that. That's the whole point. No, you cut nothing. I wish they could just be like, this is not up for debate, okay? There is no what do you want to cut here. It's not up for debate. It's what the people need. And why are you standing in opposition to what the people need? That's what the whole point should be.
To confront the four crises facing us. You've already seen him work with Republicans and Democrats and work toward a bipartisan approach to passing packages that will address the crises we're facing, and that certainly is his priority and his preference. So that's what he'll continue to work on day 2 of the administration. Go ahead, Mike Scheer.
Okay, see, you can call her.
I just gave you a hard time. Go ahead.
That's fine. So I want to push you a little bit more on that question.
Mm-hmm.
Like if there's this call for unity that the president made in his speech yesterday, but there has so far been almost no fig leaf even to the Republican Party. You don't have a Republican cabinet member like President Obama and I think President Clinton had. The executive orders that he's come out the gate have been largely designed that.
This question historically has never been advanced towards a Republican administration
with executive
in opposing terms.
He likes and agrees with. You've put forth an immigration bill that has a path to citizenship but doesn't do much of a nod towards the border security. And you've got a $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill that has, as folks have said, already drawn all sorts of criticism. Where is the actual action behind this idea of bipartisanship? And when are we going to see one of those, sort of substantial outreaches that says this is something that, the Republicans want to do too?
Well, I guess what I would send back to you, there was a lot in there, so let me do my best here. But Mike, is unemployment insurance only an issue that Democrats in the country want? Do only Democrats want their kids to go back to schools? Do only Democrats want vaccines to be distributed across the country? We feel that package, he feels that package is designed for bipartisan support. I will also say that we have also had some positive developments on our confirmations and our nominees. Last night, as you all saw, the president's nominee, now confirmed first female leader of the intelligence community, was confirmed with a vote of 84 to 10. You can check me on that, but an overwhelming vote. We've seen progress today on the nomination and hopeful confirmation of Lloyd Austin. So there is movement supported by both sides of the aisle and members of both parties. I think if you talk to Democrat or Republicans on the Hill, which I know many of you do, they will say they're not looking for something symbolic. They're looking for engagement. They're looking to have a conversation. They're looking to have a dialogue. And that's exactly what he's going to do.
Go ahead, Mary. On that, has the president reached out?
That was actually a good answer, low key, and that's precisely what the administration should be saying
In this process.
Which is like, what do you mean? Like, you want we're not going to find bipartisan compromise.
Mary,
Bipartisan
and
compromise
he
shouldn't
was-
mean like.
Yesterday was quite a busy day for him, as you all know. His schedule was minute by minute, and his family was here. But he was involved even before yesterday, having conversations with members of both parties, picking up the phone and having those conversations. He saw, of course, members of both parties. He invited leaders from both parties to join him at church. Obviously, that wasn't really a discussion about
Also,
specifics
stop
of the
simping
bill,
for.
but they did. He did
Stop simping for the fucking press secretary of the Biden administration. Their entire job is to still lie. Just because they deal with it in a more civil capacity does not mean that like their position is not literally to lie. Okay, that's what press secretaries do. They lie. Okay, some of them do it poorly and show that they're lying, like every single press secretary did when they were under the Trump administration. And some of them do it better. Okay? The reason why I say this was a good answer is because it is a good answer. Like, what is this, like, bipartisan compromise? It should not mean that we stand against the goals, the united goals that we seem to care about, or the Republicans claim to care about.
Well, let me give you a very specific example that helped really make it clear for me. One area is to acquire more low dead volume syringes. And what that does is these specialized syringes allow pharmacists and vaccinators to extract an extra dose of the Pfizer vial, so making more doses available, of course. It also prioritizes the Defense Production Act raw materials that are used to produce the vaccine, so reducing bottlenecks. And it enables manufacturers, us to empower and invoke, I guess, an action from manufacturers to make sure we have the materials we need to get the vaccines out the door and in the arms of Americans. In terms of, obviously, he signed it this afternoon. I'll have to just circle back with you on what it means, if it's officially invoked in this moment or if it takes some time, and we can circle back with you after the briefing. Go ahead, John.
On stimulus, is the White House drafting a legislative bill?
You mean in terms of the what he announced last Thursday? Well, he announced what his specific ideas will be and what his vision is. But right now we're having discussions with members of both parties, as we have for the last week, about what that will look like.
I gotta pee. Did I run an ad at the top of one? I feel like I forgot.
I'm happy to talk to our legislative team about that. I think what was important to the president was to outline what his vision would be. This is how the process should actually work, right? The president outlines, here's my vision, here's what I think should be in a package. Let's have discussions. Let's have engagements with both parties, and let's see what comes out of the sausage making at the other side. Go ahead, Anita. I'll come back to you. I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure I didn't.
Just following up on what Kristen asked, I don't think I heard an answer about whether the...
Okay, I'm running one now, and then I got to run again at the top of the hour. So here's one for 1 p.m.
Has he talked to Senator Schumer?
You already know what it is.
He's served there a long time. What are his thoughts on that?
I think what I was conveying to Kristen is that the president has been clear. He wants to work with members of both parties and find bipartisan paths forward. And I don't have any more conversations to read out for you at this point in time.
Specifically answer that, unless I'm not understanding your answer.
I don't think I have more to add to my answer.
Okay. And then just on the impeachment trial, I know that there was some talk about sort of the Senate doing both things at the same time, two things at once.
Yeah, that was
There's reporting this afternoon that
was at
Republicans
12.
are pushing to have the impeachment trial start in February. Where do you all stand still now on that? Are you still looking for that both paths to happen at the same time? Would it be preferable to do that first, or are you okay with later, as some Republicans are talking about?
Well, Anita, I think we have been pretty consistent that we believe the timing and the mechanisms for the Congress and the Senate moving forward and holding the former president accountable, we'll leave that to them. And what our biggest priority and focus is ensuring that it doesn't delay the Senate, Congress moving forward in consideration and discussion around the COVID relief package that the president proposed last week. Go ahead.
Thank you, Jen. Is the print cooler? I have a question for myself and then a question for someone who cannot be here because of the social distancing policies. My question is this, and it's about unity again. I've heard from conservatives who are afraid that the president is going to try to pull back religious conscience exemptions for groups like Little Sisters of the Poor. The president pledged he would do that in July when Little Sisters won a case in the Supreme Court. The Health and Human Services nominee Javier Becerra pursued that line of going after the exemptions as Attorney General of California. What's the president going to do on that?
I haven't discussed that particular issue with him. I'm happy to circle back with you, but I don't, there's not a change in his position from what he said earlier this summer. Did you have another question?
Question from Adam Longa of WUSA 9. He says, we saw the president warmly greet Mayor Bowser during the parade yesterday. She is pushing for the D.C. statehood measure to be on the president's desk within 100 days. Will the administration get behind this bill, and does the president support it?
I hate to disappoint you, but I will have to circle back with you on that as well. There's quite a bit going on. I have not discussed D.C. statehood with him in the last 36 hours.
I look forward to hearing it.
Okay, sounds great. Go ahead and back.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. I wanted to circle back on something COVID related. I know the president has obviously made a priority of resuming in-person learning in the first 100 days. I wondered, is the administration planning to issue any kind of uniform guidance to states on, whether it's reopening schools, reopening businesses, indoor dining, stuff like that? Or are you all planning to just kind of leave it to states to do sort of a patchwork based on their own situations?
Well, as Dr. Fauci conveyed, our objective is to ensure that health and medical experts are leading the effort in delivering guidance, determining guidance, and also communicating it with the public whenever possible. And any guidance would come, of course, as you know, from the CDC. We will, of course, defer to that. But part of our priority and our focus here is on providing more engagement with states, more clear guidance from the federal level in terms of how we're planning to operate, what data we're seeing, how vaccines are being distributed, what we see as the challenges, and that communication has been lacking as we understand it from our conversations in the past few months. So that is what we will focus on improving in the months ahead.
Would you specifically, are you planning to do, daily or weekly calls with states, or how are you planning to up the communication there?
Well, we have an entire COVID team, as you know, who are now, most of them are official, and part of their role will be engaging with governors, Democrats and Republicans, mayors, local elected officials to gain a better understanding of what's happening on the ground. That will be how they're going to be intaking a great deal of information. Obviously, health care providers and experts on the ground as well. We will also do engagement from the level of the president and the vice president as well, because they also want to have that conversation with states and local officials on what they're experiencing, what they see the challenges as, and how they can be addressed. And that's something I think in President Biden's heart. He is a local elected official still, and he gets into the weeds of what they're experiencing, and he will be involved in that himself. Go ahead and look way back.
Thanks, Jen. There's a lot of really big things that the administration wants to do: infrastructure, the stimulus, tax reform. Can you sort of lay out the cadence for us over the upcoming year? How do you envision those three major things playing out? What's the order? When do you think those will be taken up? When will they happen?
Well, what I can lay out for you on our first full day here is what our initial priorities are, and they revolve around addressing the four crises that the president has stated that the country is facing, including getting the pandemic under control, getting people back to work, addressing our climate crisis, and addressing racial equity. And so, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, do you think tax reform happens in 2021?
I don't really have any predictions for you on that. I think at this point in time and for the foreseeable future, addressing the pandemic, getting the pandemic under control, and that linkage to getting people back to work will be his top priority.
Keystone XL, the decision yesterday from the president. What would you say to those who have lost their job or will lose their job as a result of that decision? What would the message from the president and the White House be?
The message of the president and the White House would be that he is committed. His record will shows the American people that he's committed to clean energy jobs, to jobs that are not only good, high-paying jobs, union jobs, but ones that are also good for our environment. He thinks it's possible to do both. He led an effort when he was the vice president to put millions of people to work with both of those priorities in mind, and he will continue to do that as president. But he had opposed the Keystone Pipeline back in 2013 when there was a consideration of the permit, or Sorry, I don't think it was 2013. I think it was a little bit after that. And he's been consistent in his view, and he was delivering on a promise he made to the American public during the campaign. Go ahead all the way in the back.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you about India-US relationship. What is President Biden's vision of an India-US relationship, the relationship between the world's oldest and world's largest democracies?
Well, first, I would say that President Biden, who of course has visited India many times, respects and values the long bipartisan, successful relationship between leaders in India and the United States. He looks forward to a continuation.
We're gonna do
of that.
Hogwatch after this.
Obviously, he selected and yesterday she was sworn in, the first Indian American to serve as president or vice president. Certainly a historic moment for all of us in this country, but a further, cementing of the importance of our relationship. So, go ahead, George.
Yeah, thanks. Two questions, if I could. One on the Hatch Act. Will this administration take that seriously, and do you think it's ever appropriate for this White House to have a political event or a political meeting?
Well, as you know, there are some political events that are acceptable, but we certainly take the Hatch Act seriously and will abide by that. And you will not see a political rally.
All right, they've gotten to the point where they're asking dumb questions. I mean, like
Second one,
the first 10 to 40% of the press briefings are like decent questions, and then the rest of it is like, well,
they're fun.
the rest of it is just like really dumb questions like, oh, will you violate the Hatch Act? Yes. What do you expect her to say, dumbass? Yes, we are going to break the law.
The president has been denied all those. Has he ever been at all wistful?
It's like the first day when they were asking about, changing the color scheme of Air Force One. You know what I mean? It's like,
Not in front of me, George. I will say that
it's
even
stupid.
Yesterday, or of the last couple of days, he tried to find a moment of joy with his family and with his grandchildren, who bring him a great deal of joy, and a recognition of course, the great responsibility he has on his shoulders, but a moment in history that he was playing a very important part of. So I would say he's been in public office, as you all know, for decades, and he's had many joyful moments.
Marjorie
but
Taylor
this
Greene is
moment,
too
serving as
stupid to
president,
impeach
coming
Biden
in
anyway.
at a
It doesn't
crisis
fucking matter.
where thousands of people are dying from a pandemic every day, millions of people are out of work. Is not really a time for daily joy as the leader of the free world, and he's focused on doing his job to get the work done for the American people. Go ahead.
Why weren't President Biden and all members of the Biden family masked at all times on federal lands last night if he signed an executive order that mandates masks on federal lands at all times?
At the inaugural
Memorial, yes.
I think, Steve, he was celebrating an evening of a historic day in our country, and certainly he signed the mask mandate because it's a way to send a message to the American public about the importance of wearing masks, how it can save tens of thousands of lives.
This is the equivalent of, why aren't you wearing your mask in the shower?
Social distancing, mask wearing ourselves as we do every single day, but I don't know that I have more for you on it than that.
But as Joe Biden often talks about, it is not just important the
Also, he's vaccinated, jackass.
power, but the power
whatever.
of our example. Was that a good example for people who are watching who might not pay attention normally?
Well, Steve, I think the power of his example is also the message he sends by signing 25 executive orders, including almost half of them related to COVID. The requirements that we're all under.
They literally made him wear a fucking mask while he was celebrating inside of the Oval Office. You know that, right?
Inaugurated as
There were only in instances where he's like speaking to a microphone where he's not fucking mask wearing. That shit is so
I think
dumb.
we have bigger issues to worry about at this moment in time. Go ahead, Anita.
You mentioned.
Oh, sorry, Jeff. Let me go to Jeff, Anita, because I already went to you. If that's okay. Jeff, go ahead.
Like, I'm not defending the Biden administration, but if you consider that rolling or an ownage, you're fucking brain dead.
From Russia that they will object to the extension of 5 years, and has the United States already alerted Moscow about its desire?
Well, we have not, obviously, as you know, a number of our nominees have talked about our intention during their confirmation hearings over the past couple of days of extending New START. I don't have any calls to read out for you, but I can check and see if any notifications or discussions have happened this afternoon.
And a follow-up on something from yesterday, which I think you referred to, that President Biden had said that President Trump left him a very generous note.
You wouldn't defend Trump like that?
Talk about
Hey,
it.
jackass. Donald Trump literally talked about how you shouldn't wear masks if you don't want to. How you thought wearing a mask, he said wearing a mask was for pussies. Like, for the first 75% of the fucking pandemic. Shut the fuck up. There is no comparison to be made here, you dumb jackass. I even defended Nancy Pelosi at certain points.
He just was even trying to be respectful in that moment of a private letter that was sent.
With regard to the former president, has President Biden spoken to Speaker Pelosi at all about the timing of when she plans to bring the impeachment articles to the Senate and how he would like to see this trial proceed?
President Biden has been pretty clear about what the focus of his conversations are and what his intention is with his engagements with leaders from both sides of the aisle and in both houses of Congress, including with Speaker Pelosi, someone he's known for quite some time. And that is his intention and focus on getting the COVID package through. So he will leave it to her and to now Leader Schumer to determine what the path forward and the timeline will be in holding the former president accountable. Anita, go back to you.
Yeah, you earlier mentioned 4 priorities of the president. I was surprised to not hear immigration per se in that, because yesterday many of the executive orders were about immigration. There were 2 major agency releases last night about immigration. The bill is being introduced today. Do you not see that as sort of the second big push after the COVID bill? Where do you see that? And I guess I would say, why is it, I was going to ask you, why is it going to be, why is it such a priority after the COVID bill, but you didn't even list it. So I wanted to kind of clarify that and get your thoughts on it.
Well, I wouldn't read into that other than immigration we consider as part of racial equity and part of which is a broad issue, but that's how the president has spoken about that crisis over the past several months, and clearly it is an enormous priority to him because we moved forward in announcing the specifics of an immigration bill, an immigration package he is eager to move forward on with Congress on his first day in office. But as you know, there's been a lot of history on efforts to do comprehensive immigration reform, to do any form of immigration reform. And what we're hopeful is that this will be a moment of reset and a moment to restart discussions on Capitol Hill. There are already a number of co-sponsors who have been announced to have those discussions. There are experts on immigration who have worked on this issue on both sides of the aisle. Historically, it is an issue that there is bipartisan support from the business community, supports from a range of outside groups with different political tilts, and we're hopeful that that will help propel it forward.
Menendez said today on a call, he called it a Herculean, effort to get this through. As you know, it hasn't gone through, as you just mentioned before. I mean, there are Republicans grumbling today that there's not more in that bill that they want to see. So is that bill, what do you think the prospect of that bill getting through is?
Well, I don't know that I can predict that the first day. I mean, it's only been out for 24 hours. But what was important to the president in the outline of this bill is that it is addressing a couple of areas that he doesn't feel have been effectively done in the past. The last 4 years, the immigration policy has been based around funding for a wall. That has not worked, even to keep the country safer, even to keep bad actors out. And so his approach is multi-pronged. It is to do smart security that will help address and use technology to address key border crossings, address ports of entry more effectively and efficiently, and putting that oversight in the hands of the Department of Homeland Security. It will also help address root causes of migration, and that hasn't been in past bills, as you probably well know, Anita. It was not in the bill in 2013, but it's something that he has been an advocate for in his time in public office. And it also has a pathway to citizenship for the 11 million undocumented immigrants who are living in the country. There are components of here in the bill that address a lot of the issues that have not been addressed in the past, and certainly the components of it that talk about smart security are the kind of border security that we think is essential and more effective than what we've seen over the past couple of years. Go ahead. Oh. Can I go to Zeke first and then to you, Kristen? Go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up on a question I asked the President an hour or so ago about the 100 million vaccines in the first 100 days target. That's roughly a per diem basis of where the vaccinations are right now. Can you just elaborate a little bit why the President isn't setting the bar a little bit higher? It may be require another nudge. Just to explain to the American people when they see these statistics of, one tracker had 1.6 million yesterday. Why isn't the President shooting just a little bit higher given the magnitude of the crisis here?
Well, none of us are mathematicians, myself included, so I asked our team to do a little math on this. So the Trump administration was given 36 million doses when they were in office for 38 days. They administered a total of about 17 million shots. That's about less than 500,000 shots a day. What we are proposing is to double that to about 1 million shots per day. And we have outlined this goal and objective in coordination and consultation with our health and medical experts. So it is ambitious. It's something that we feel is bold and was called that certainly at the time. And we're working overtime to help to achieve it, try to achieve it.
But is the President trying to, he obviously would try to exceed that if possible. Is it possible we may see in a couple of weeks or a month that the President would up that goal?
Well, Zeke, there are a lot of factors that go into
we're not going to try to
determining how
exceed
many
it.
shots can get into the arms of Americans. We feel confident we can achieve this goal. Obviously, there are other vaccines that are being considered at this point in time by the FDA. There is funding that will be needed for distribution. There are a number of
Never
steps.
mind. They actually went. They went over that brief moment of like, oh, thank God, we now have a normal press pool asking normal questions to a normal normal speaker to asking really dumb questions in a manner to be in a way that seems overcorrective. Like they're doing this to defend against the inevitable criticisms from the right.
It's not just about lining people up.
Like, right-wingers are going to say, oh, the press is not contentious towards this administration. And in an effort to make sure that they can defend themselves against that, they're already, like, asking stupid fucking questions so that in a matter in a way to look like they are asking contentious questions.
This is a bold goal. We're going to work every day to achieve it, and we'll build from there. There's a lot more of the administration to go from there and more work on COVID to be done. Go ahead, Kristen.
Jen, President Biden is reversing a number of former President Trump's policies, and we're seeing some of former President Trump's staffers be placed on leave or be reassigned. Is there an attempt to purge Trump officials?
Well, there's a new administration, so obviously there are a number of new officials in place. I know there was some reporting, for example, and I don't know if this is who you're referencing, so you tell me if not, of the head of the NLRB. That's an individual who was not carrying out the, anyone would tell you, not just from our administration, the objectives of the NLRB. And so they're no longer in their position, and we'll make those decisions as needed.
So there's not an effort writ large.
Good.
But you're reassessing individuals.
Well, Kristen, as you know, when a new administration comes in, there's a massive changeover in political appointees and nominees and people who will serve in a variety of roles. There are some people, Christopher Wray as an example, I'll just bring him back up, who will continue to serve in his role. But we have great value for career officials.
Anthony Fauci.
The officials who have been the heart and soul of agencies across government since long before the Trump administration, but who have served through the Trump administration as well.
On COVID, the question. Did the transition officials know before yesterday that Amazon wanted to get involved in such a meaningful way?
We saw, not that I'm aware of. I'm happy to check. I mean, when the reporting came out I asked the question, and I think internally, and what was conveyed to me, and I don't think we discussed this yesterday, was that we've had a lot of outreach, some privately, some publicly, from a range of businesses and private sector entities, and we certainly welcome that, and we'll be considering all of those offers and what makes the most sense in our plans and proposals.
So, because there are some Trump officials saying they were never offered help from Amazon, and so they're essentially saying they think this was a political call for Amazon to wait while lives were hanging in the balance, but you're saying that is not the case.
I'm not aware of the timeline of when Amazon reached out. That sounds like a question for Amazon to me.
Jen, what did you think about all the pardons that Trump handed out on his way out the door? And do you know if the DOJ or anyone is reviewing any of those?
Well, as you know, we nominated an attorney general just a couple of weeks ago, Merrick Garland. We're eager to get him confirmed in the coming weeks, hopefully soon. Our view on the pardons, Jennifer, is that it's not a model for how a Biden Justice Department would work. It's not a model, I should say, for how President Biden would use his own power. He would use his own power far more judiciously. But